Today we're exploring Old Town Maine, an old civil bunker made back during the Cold War in the 60s. It has since been abandoned and sealed up. We're going to take a look at it and talk about history a little bit. This is right off the bike path on the University of Maine trails. Right behind Hannaford are the Old Town Elementary School. It's been cleaned up quite a bit since the last time I was here. It sets back off the bike path. You would honestly miss it unless you were paying attention now. So at one point in time, these two concrete pillars, or what looks like pillars that were part of the wall, those are actually the doors to get inside. They've sealed them up because of vandals. As you can see, it still gets vandalized. There was one on each side. You could go in. There are conflicting reports on the square footage inside. The bunker was built out of concrete and into the earth to withstand a nuclear blast and protect you from the nuclear fallout that would take place after. It was also used as a temporary women's prison at one point in time, which is why this fence is here, or what's remaining of the fence. You step in here, where this graffiti or mass amount of graffiti is, here where it's gray instead of the black. That used to be a glass sliding door so that the women inmates could get outside for their yard time. This took place back in the 80s when it was used as a temporary women's prison. Like I just said, used as a temporary women's prison back in the 80s. It was used for about 2 years as a women's prison while they refurbished the Penobscot County jail to accommodate their needs. Inside was also refurbished to accommodate prisoners. So they had single rooms as well as rooms with bunk beds in them. Not a lot. The need for a women's prison wasn't at high demand. Shortly after, in the early 90s, I want to say 90, 91, it was used by a non-profit organization, Derigo Search and Rescue. They were going to use this as the headquarters. I was actually part of Derigo Search and Rescue at that point, so I had the opportunity to be inside legally. We came out for training one day and somebody had broken in and actually took all of our equipment and scattered it throughout the woods. So instead of doing training, we were walking the woods and trying to find our equipment so we could restore it. Luckily enough, nothing really got busted. I think maybe a couple lamps, but nothing major. I'm kind of surprised that most of the fence is still standing as well as it is. This fence was here at the time as well. At one point in time, they had talked about making this into the 911 center for Penobscot County, but that fell through. So reports on the inside square footage have ranged anywhere, I've read anywhere from 3,500 feet to 8,000 square feet. Being inside, I can't imagine it was 8,000 square feet, but I could be mistaken. Originally, if you were back in the 60s and 70s during the Cold War, the threat of a nuclear war was very, very, very high. However, unless you had your own bunker to go into, you would not have a place to go. These bunkers were built for government officials, so city, state, and government officials. This one was used as a communication post. Things that I found and read was that they actually did training exercises, so the people that would map out these issues, they would go and drop flares in different places and wait for phone calls from civilians, and they would plot where the drops were, and that's how they did their training. Communication would come in through here and go out to civilians that potentially had survived a nuclear fallout. The significance to this being an old town is very high, because at the time in Bangor, it wasn't Bangor International Airport, it was Dow Airfield, which was a military base, and also one of the high targets on the East Coast for a nuclear attack. Maine had several areas. Limestone had a military base that's since been closed, and Cutler, there was a radar station, which I believe is abandoned now. So you had Augusta, because it was the state capital, Bangor, Maine with the military, Limestone with the military, Cutler, and Portland, Maine, because Portland, Maine would have been the, you know, it would have been a significant hit for population. And yeah, it would have been horrible. Luckily enough, these were never used. There were fallout shelters that were built in public buildings as well. So I remember the Old Town Post Office having a placard up that was a fallout shelter. A lot of those placards have been removed, and were demanded to be removed by the federal government because they were no longer necessary, or not so much necessary, because the threat of nuclear war is always there, obviously, but they just decayed. It wouldn't have done any good to get into one. And there was no rations anymore. They weren't upkept. These places were they were filled with barrels that had food in it and water enough to sustain 2 weeks. Some reports say that this shelter itself was meant for 350 people. I tend to disagree with that, seeing the inside before. I've also read reports it was for about 35 people, which would seem more idealistic with the size and who they were going to allow inside. Obviously civilians weren't getting in, so state and government officials in this area are not that high, so I don't believe that it would have been used for 350 people. I could be wrong. I was not alive in the 60s, nor did I help develop this place. A lot of them were decommissioned because they opened up the barrels and they were full of bugs. And again, the threat wasn't as high as it was. So most were decommissioned in the 70s. So this one happened to be built in 1965 is what I found. Again, before I was born. So all I can do is go by the research that I've done. Let's go check out some more of this place. At one point in time, you could really find this very easily because of the radio towers. The radio towers are no longer... Well, I take that back. The trees just disguise them now. There's one right there that they got some graffiti on that goes up quite a ways. You can see it poking up over the treetops. So it would have been your communication. Still a power pole here that the wires would have gone in through that pipe, I would imagine, and gone into the ground. and walking along the top of the bunker. As I said, the bunker was built and then covered with earth. You can actually see we're on top of the bunker, and you can see the amount of earth that is actually on top. Well, if we go over here, I'm going to take a look down this path here. It looks like a lot of people walk up and along the top here. But if you go over here, this has been part of the ventilation system, is my understanding. Obviously this pipe probably would have been part of it. These are also part. They have sealed up the holes. Looks like somebody's recently had a good time with some spray paint. Be very careful if you're around here, because there is broken glass and broken metal everywhere, rusty metal. Oh yeah, freshly painted. But they've sealed up. You can see where people have tried prying it off. That didn't go so well for them, I'm guessing. But it's very well sealed. I'm not sure what this wooden structure was when it was up, and where it would have been, but it's all sealed up. From what I can tell, there's actually no way to actually get inside of the bunker anymore because of the vandals. You can, if you do so incline. It's an easy Google search for bunkers in Old Town Maine, and you can find old photos from inside the bunker. These bunkers were meant not to be discovered very easily. They were meant for government officials to know the location, and that's what they wanted. They didn't want the people to know. Through my research, I found that there's still an existing bunker in Augusta, and it's at the State House. And I believe one in the Capitol, so that our state officials still have a bunker. But we'll get up and out of here and make our way back down to the bottom here. So this appears to be the backside of the bunkers, and this area, as you can see, is fully underground. You can see the slope here as it goes up, which would have been where they put the dirt on top after they put the concrete in. I believe, I'm trying to go by memory, I think the concrete was 18 inches thick. I could be wrong, it may have been more than that, followed by the dirt. Again, to try to stop the amount of nuclear fallout that would have penetrated, and the survival rate would have been higher for the folks inside. So as I'm making my way out of here, I looked off and I saw, because I thought that there were two towers, two antenna towers, and I did find the other one, came across it. This one is still pretty well intact. You can actually see the concrete that the antenna is mounted to, as well as a power pole and the pole that comes into the bunker, or goes into the bunker, and there's still wires coming out of the pole and going up the antenna, and the antenna goes all the way up, pokes through the top of the treetops. These trees wouldn't have been here at the time, or not as tall, obviously. This was back in the 60s, so these trees have grown a lot since the 60s. I find history absolutely amazing, and the fact that this is still here and not completely dug out and they just decided to seal it up is pretty cool. Unfortunately, with the vandals, they had to seal it up, and now no one can go in and you'll never be able to get inside again and see it. And I can't imagine the amount of mold that has grown in there over the years. This was sealed up back in the I believe it was the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, when they finally sealed it up after vandals got into it the last time. The fascinating part to me is also the vandals getting in the 80s. So after the women's prison closed down, some people believed that the Penobscot County stored their confiscated marijuana in there. So a bunch of vandals came and broke into it at that point, thinking that they were going to get the loot, and they did not get any loot. There was no marijuana stored in this bunker, contrary to popular belief. What is this? Supposed to be part, yeah. So this is part of, again, we're on University of Maine property over here. It's no longer state or town property, it's part of the University of Maine property. We got things all through the woods. There's lots of bike trails, hiking trails, and so forth and through here, so it's kind of neat. One other thing that I forgot to mention, where these entrances are sealed up, and again, it's the same on this as it is over there. That one's sealed up as well with cinder blocks. Before the cinder blocks, there used to be a chain link fence that sealed that off to deter people from going in. People still went in. You'd walk up, and if I remember correctly, again, this was a long time ago when I was in there, you go to the end and it went to the right, and then on your left there was a big steel door, and that's how you would gain entrance into the bunker itself. So this wasn't the actual entrance to the bunker. There was no steel door here. This was the entranceway to go up to the door to get into the bunker. As I'm heading back towards my truck, I realized how scary that time must have been back in the 60s. The threat of nuclear war constantly hovering over your head. I know it's scary nowadays. Weapons have developed much beyond that, but a nuclear war would have been horrific. Even now, it would be very horrific. Maine had a lot of targets, one of them being Bangor. Old Town's just outside of Bangor, which is why this bunker's here. Bangor was Dow Airfield at the time, so it was military, still is military there. You also had targets in Portland, Maine because of the population, Augusta because of the capital, and Limestone, as well as Cutler. Cutler had a giant radar system there that's since been abandoned. The same with Limestone. Limestone's shut down, there's nothing left there. The structures are still there, or some of the structures, I don't know if all of them. Someday I'm hoping to make it up there, hopefully before everything is gone. A lot to think about. I need to do some more research on the Cold War. I'm a big World War II buff, so I know quite a bit about World War II. If you like my content, or if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. You can also check me out on Facebook at Exploring Me, and on Instagram at Exploring Me 207. Until next time, keep exploring.